Welcome back here at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine, show fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, kind enough to sit down. What's happening?
Combine, man. Just working through all of it.
How would you explain that to the audience that doesn't really understand the scope of this thing? Because that encompasses so much.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that goes on this week. The free agency process is sort of on its way. Every agent in the world is here, and then you got all the formal interviews, which go. We start at 7 o'clock and it goes till 11 every night, and then in the morning. Now they changed the schedule, so now it's in the morning too. These first couple of days are pretty good packed schedule of interviews, and then you add all for me all the media part of it as well. It's there's a lot going on. There's a lot of information, and then that's kind of our business, right? We're in an information gathering business right now, and we're trying to find all the information on these players that we can.
Try not to enjoy the media part so much. I know we were just talking before we started up here about the car wash effect. You gotten used to that at all yet? I mean, now you're a year into this. You've been around. You understand the ebbs and flows. Obviously, you've been around the league for a long time.
Yeah, I do. It's it's part of the job, right? You have to. We all work together, and we all have jobs to do, and part of my job is to answer questions and give people information so you can do your job. and
how well I do my job is a day-to-day proposition, I'm sure Kirby would tell you. How do you kind of maximize, because it's 18 minutes, right? 18 minutes with these kids. It's speed dating, essentially. And I know that Senior Bowl and Shrine, and obviously there are other opportunities to get to know them, but this is the full scope. How do you kind of max that 18 minutes out?
One of the things that we do, which isn't necessarily unique to just us, it's a lot of teams do a version of it, but we have our position coaches build, a 10 to 15 play cut up, right, of good and bad, and because I think we know who they are, as far as the background, we don't need to step in the room and ask them, tell me about yourself, we know that part, so we're trying to find out more specific information. There's certain questions we might have about the player. How they view the game, all those things, their football intelligence. And so our goal is to try to put them in a position where they have to actually look at themselves and explain what's happening. So you try to get as much information as you can in a very short amount of time because of that. So our position coaches do a great job of lining those things up. But you put a little pressure on them too. You want to see them answer some questions, and sometimes it's simple as why, what kind of effort is this on this particular play, and then they heads kind of go down, and you see how they respond when you point out some negatives, and you also have some positive things in there too. But you try to get to the football as fast as possible, I guess is the best way to put it.
I know there's obviously 329 players, I believe, invited this week, and quarterback is a popular topic, especially with you guys having the number 1 overall pick. You got to spend some time with Shedeur Sanders.
Yep.
You spoke glowingly about him. What are you most looking for? To your point, you're not necessarily like, hey, let's tell me about yourself with Cam Ward, but what are you most interested to learn about him, given that this will be the first time that you guys actually get in a room with him?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the interaction, just the back and forth, and being able to ask questions about good plays on tape. Quarterbacks are more fun for me because there's so many more things you can dig at than just like a pass rusher, for example. Like there's protection questions, there's processing questions. So I'm looking forward to that, and just to see how guys answer. That part's the fun part for me, and you try to dig as much as you can in a really short amount of time to see if you can't get some nugget of information or some answer to a question that helps continue to form the full picture.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty interesting personality. Based, it's only social media clips and stuff like that you see out there. But I think that's going to be a pretty interesting interaction for everybody involved.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Absolutely.
I do think some of that too is that who you are all the time. Is
sure.
What you're, and that's what you look for. You're looking for consistency of personality and be who you want to be and be that. But does it match up? Are you the same in the locker room as you are on social media? And I think those things all matter too, is when you're talking about the makeup of a person. So I'm looking forward to that.
I know you were also looking forward to the idea of getting back to your roots, as I think you put it, with the scouting process, and how rewarding has that been now that, obviously the dust is not necessarily settled. You're looking for better results coming out of year one, but for this process, how much have you enjoyed kind of getting gritty with it again?
It's great.
For lack of a better term.
I do like that part of the process. I like the interviews. I like going to the All-Star games. Those things are great. And I like the exposure to the players because I have a much better feel for the players that are out there now because of that. But the flip side of it is after going through a year, you have a much better picture for what your team is, where you're at, what you need. Much more clear this year than it was last year. I hadn't even met some of the players really until we start, at this point last year. So much more clear. The vision's clear. What needs to be done is clear. Got a lot of work ahead of us, clearly, but it's a much different perspective in year 2 than it was in year 1.
Titans head coach Brian Callahan here with us on 104.5 The Zone, hanging out at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine with the cost-benefit analysis of rookie quarterback and veteran starting option. I know you addressed this at the podium. The audience may not have gotten the opportunity to hear it. And then you add into the mix, there's a lot of rumors at this time of year. You've got a lot of teams meeting with players who are in contract situations. Matt Stafford is one of those. Obviously, you have familiarity. How closely do you pay attention to all of those things, and what is kind of the risk-reward proposition for you guys as a team, where you're at right now?
Yeah, I think those are all things you have to weigh. I mean, there is a very clear risk-reward when you're talking about building a football team and where you invest your resources. And are we in a position where we're going to trade another pick and pay another player, or do we have to do it differently? And I think you have to weigh all those things. And sometimes the answer is yes, you are. And then the other part for us is that where are we in our process? And we have a lot of things we got to get rectified position-wise. There's a lot of places we have holes that we have to fill. And so how do you best, with all the things available, the whole picture of the pie, the draft class, the free agency class, how do you best improve your football team, and how do you get the most chances at doing it, I think is one of the things that's important. And so that's what we're working through right now.
Sure, and so much of that, obviously, the quarterback, the most important position. You could argue it anywhere in professional sports, but the idea of, working through the process that you guys had with Will and Mason last year and trying to get the best possible results, obviously, didn't go your way. For you though, how, as you talk about where you are in this phase heading into year 2, how much closer do you think you are to meaningfully competitive if you can just kind of level out at the quarterback position based on what you already have, and understanding that there's still a great deal more that needs to be added there?
I mean, the way I look at it is, from the coaching perspective, is we have to do a better job of eliminating the things that cost us football games. Turn the ball over 34 times. Right? Not going to win very many games doing that. Is it all one person's fault? No, absolutely not. But we have got to get that part squared away. We were penalized at a rate that's ultimately unacceptable. We went backwards far too often. So all these self-inflicted negative plays that we had over the course of the season really, I think, offensively in particular, put us behind the 8 ball when it came to being able to consistently move the ball down the field and score points. And so I look at it from the coaching perspective is we have to get those things fixed regardless of who plays for us. And that to me is a really important part of the process is we got to improve doing things the right way more often. And we didn't do a good enough job over the year. That's ultimately on me, and we have to fix that part. So whoever plays quarterback, whatever that looks like, whoever's playing right tackle for us, we have to fix those problems first, period, regardless of who those people are. Have to find a way to get those things fixed. And I think you'll see a much cleaner, better brand of football when you do those things first.
To your point, those are all fair criticisms, and you can get caught up in, obviously, the swirl of the season. There's a million different things going on. What do you think the most unfair criticism of last season was, just generally?
That's hard to say. I try not to listen too much.
Sure. I don't blame you.
I do think, though, that there's a lot of things that we have to do better, and that's always ultimately going to start with me. And I feel so much better now going into this second off season of where those points are and how to do it. More importantly, it's one thing for me to get up here and tell you, we got to be penalized less. Well, how do we fix it? And those are the things that we're working on from now until we start playing again in the fall. Is how to rectify those issues. And so the criticisms I don't worry about as much. We're certainly deserving of plenty of it. We won 3 games, so hard for me to push back on a whole lot at this point, but we got to go prove it that we're going to be a better football team this year.
You mentioned at the podium the idea of not necessarily prioritizing scheme ahead of talent, essentially trying to make things work around the talent. Is that a lifelong philosophy, or is that something that you had to learn? Because I don't think, I'm sure it's different for every coach based on different life experiences.
Yeah, I think it's a general philosophy. It's one I've always sort of had. I think you have to have a system, right? There has to be a way that you believe in doing something, whether it's offensive schematics, whether it's program building. There has to be something that guides your thought process. But the talent is always going to supersede that. And whatever that talent is, our job is to fit around them to highlight those talents. To me, that's just coaching in general, right? How do you best put players in position to succeed? How do you give them as much of the things they do well as minimizing the things that maybe they're not as good at? And so I would never pass up talent for what is deemed a system fit, if that makes sense. And I think that's the way you have to go about it, because NFL systems should be malleable. You should be able to fit to what you have. And I think we did a good job of it as the year went along last year. There was definitely some things early in the season that we might not have had a great feel for, that as we got to know the players better, we started to do more of those things for them. I think Calvin Ridley is a good example of that. But yeah, and you're sort of always trying to probe and find things that guys do well as the season goes. It's not a all right, we're in training camp, we're done doing that, we know what we do well. No, every year it changes. Your team's different every year, and so you have to be able to adjust. And I think one of the things, if you look back at the years in Cincinnati, just the different ways we had to pivot over different seasons to help highlight the guys that we had. And I think that it's a pretty sound way of going about it, is find as many good players as you can and fit whatever you do to them.
Well, Brian, I appreciate you sitting down. Dwight's going to tase me if I don't get you out of here soon enough. But enjoy the week, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Buck. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. All right, Curb.